Greetings to the earthly mother, heavenly father, and all the angels that they have to help us every day. Had to put the glasses on for this one, fam. Much love to the tribes, Japhites, Hamites, Shamites. Notice I said tribes, not races. DH8donthate. We're going to cover a lot of areas tonight because we're about to get into the laws of mixing intro. It's here to stay, so deal with it. It's not going nowhere. In the origins of the tribes, we covered how mixing began with the Japhites, son Tiras, going down to the Hamites, Cush, Put, and Canaan, and mixing. And so we're going to get a little deeper with the patriarchs. And we have to start with Noah. We have to cover that again. In Enoch chapter 106, verse 2, he's an albino, people, a black albino with long locks, hair white as wool, black people features, but looking white. In Enoch chapter 106, verse 4, Lamech is scared to death. He's afraid. Because in Enoch chapter 106, verse 5, he's never seen a black, white albino with locks. You know, that person didn't exist. You know, everybody was black. And so, of course, he wanted to know what to do, and his father found out that in Enoch chapter 106, verse 13, that the Most High was doing a new thing. In Enoch chapter 106, verse 15, this new thing was judgment for salvation to Noah and his family, and also Genesis chapter 7, verse 1 through 3, the male and females of beast, bird, and other, the clean animals by sevens and the unclean by twos. So in Enoch chapter 106, verse 15, is judgment of destruction for many. And in Enoch chapter 106, verse 16, and Genesis 7, 1 through 3, judgment of salvation for a remnant of man and animal. So only Noah's family is going to make it, and 7 pairs of the animals clean and 2 pairs unclean. That's just a remnant. And so after the flood, we have something interesting. And you have to go to Jubilees chapter 8, starting at verse 12. And this is the land divisions. Japheth gets the north. In the north, in verse 29 and 30 of Jubilees chapter 8 is the portion that is cold. So, you know, we're going to find out where that is, and that's up north. Of course, it tells you in Jubilees chapter 8, verse 12, that that's the northern part, but it's all the north, and we'll explain that. Jubilees chapter 8, verse 22, Ham gets the second portion, which is south. And in verse 30, it's hot. And so let's go to verse 12. Sham's portion in the middle, in verse 13 of Jubilees 8, has a tongue, a peninsula at the southern tip, almost touching Ethiopia, which is the land of Cush, which is Africa. And it's touching, and it's divided by the Red Sea. And in verse 30, it's a place that's neither hot nor cold, where the Garden of Eden is located. So you see why Noah was a black albino? He needed to produce 3 sons who could physically handle skin tone in a cold area, which is north, for the black high yellow son, southern hot area for the black son, and for an area that's neither hot nor cold, you would have to have a brownish, dark brownish, mocha, light brown, tan sun. Thus, we had a patriarch Noah that would kick off the mixing. And it was called tribes them, not races. The skin tone was just to secure them for the regions that they were going into. So let's get to Genesis chapter 16 and 3. But before we go there, let's talk about Zepho. We're going to skip to Zepho because Zepho's story is in Jasher chapter 58 to Jasher chapter 67. Real quick. Jasher chapter 58 and 6. Joseph became king over Egypt. He made war with surrounding enemies in chapter 58 verse 8 of Jasher. And in Jasher chapter 58 verse 12, he subdued them. And in this subduing, in chapter 58 verse 14, he captured Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, who was the Genesis 36 verse 4 in Jasher chapter 60 verse 1, son of Esau. So Zepho was Esau's grandson, who Joseph imprisoned. And then Zepho's brothers, the Edomites, the children of Esau, wanted to rescue him by going to fight with the sons of Jacob, led by Joseph, who was king over Egypt, in Jasher chapter 58, verse 12, where Joseph was king. And in Jasher chapter 58, verse 14, Edomites wanted to rescue Zepho, their brethren. But they failed in Jasher chapter 58, verse 21 through 26 in rescuing Zepho. But eventually, after Joseph died in Jasher chapter 60, verse 1, Zepho escaped. And eventually, Zepho became the first king of Chittim, which is Rome. So an Edomite, Esau, is king of Chittim, Rome. Here we go. And that's in Jasher chapter 60, verse 24. And he brought all the Japhethites confederate against his grandfather Esau's twin brother Jacob, which is Israel. And after annihilating the Hamites under King Angus in Jasher chapter 63, verse 25 through 35. So Esau in the Gentile, Genesis chapter 10, verse 5, Japhethites mixed with the Edomites. So here we go mixing. Zepho's kicking it off. Read his whole story in Jasher chapter 58 through Jasher chapter 67. So now we got Japhethites mixing with Edomites. Zepho's kicking it off, the grandson of Esau, mixing with them. So now let's go back to the patriarch Abraham. Genesis 16:3. Sarah gives her handmaid Hagar, the Egyptian, to Abraham as a wife. And his name wasn't Abraham then, it was Abram. And he takes Hagar, the Egyptian, mixing. Now we got Genesis chapter 23, verse 2, Sarah dies. And then Genesis chapter 25, verse 1, Abraham takes Keturah, Jasher chapter 25, verse 1, a Canaanite. And they already been mixing with the daughters of Tiras, the Japhethites. So now he's got that wife. In verse 2 of Jasher 25, they have 6 sons. Now, Jasher chapter 25, verse 15 through 19, Ishmael took a Canaanite wife. Ishmael is Abraham's son by Hagar, the Egyptian. So now we got Ishmael following in his dad Abram's footsteps. Now watch this. In Genesis 25, notice Abram's name becomes Abraham. I wonder why. Is it because Sarah gave the Egyptian woman to Abram in Genesis chapter 16, verse 3? Now the Most High is calling him Abraham because they mingled and mixed with the Hamites, the Egyptian Hagar. So now let's go back to Ishmaelite, the son by Hagar, wife of Abraham, second wife, polygyny. So now Ishmael is following in his dad's footsteps. He takes a Canaanite wife after putting away his first wife that was bad. And you can read about that story in Jasher chapter 21, verses 23 through 48. And which he sent her back to her Egyptian home. So Ishmael's first wife was Egyptian, then he marries a Canaanite, just like Papa Abraham. So now, and that's in Jasher chapter 26, verse 20. Watch this, y'all. Here's the big one. Abraham's concubines. It didn't say wives, but they are wives because he consummated them because they had children. So now Abraham's got concubines other than wives, but concubines are wives also, because if you consummate them, the Most High said they two shall become one. So now, look at this, people. It's mixing everywhere. Patriarchs, they got concubines, polygyny's going on. It's mixing everywhere. Now, the Most High don't have a problem with it, because in 2 Chronicles 20 verse 7, Abraham is the Most High's friend forever. Isaiah chapter 41:8, Abraham is my friend, says the Most High, by the prophet Isaiah. So we got to get over this. And now we're going to get into the laws of mixing.